Hello and welcome to Sound Bites. I'm your host, Holly Whitfield, Digital Director at the Daily Memphian. I am here with Josh Conley, owner of the soon-to-open Bar Limina and the founder of the Etowah Collective. This week we're going to talk about his new cocktail bar's concept, his other projects, his connection to what I'm finally just giving in and calling the next wave of Memphis dining. Don't forget, Sound Bites is the Daily Memphian's weekly food, drink, and dining podcast that goes along with all of our other fun Memphis Eats stories on our website. Tune into the podcast on WYXR Radio every Thursday at 11, or you can listen wherever you get your podcasts, like Spotify or iTunes. If you don't have all that stuff, just listen at dailymemphian.com. But if you are listening right now on WYXR, keep listening, because up next you can hear the Sidebar podcast with our Daily Memphian CEO, Eric Barnes. Every week he talks about someone from the arts and culture scene in Memphis. But let's get started with Bar Limina and Josh Conley. Thank you so much for being here. I know you're very busy right now.
Thanks for having me. Glad to make time for you.
So Bar Limina is opening in a couple of weeks. Full disclosure, we're recording this episode even further in the past, but the bar is going to open in the Edge District in a couple of weeks. Right off the bat, tell us about where it is, what it is, and what we can expect.
Yeah, 631 Madison. So right there across the street from our friends at Rootstock and Jim, basically in front of and sort of down the alley from Ugly Art Co., which is a great sort of art gallery and art collective. We do a lot of work with them through the dinner series.
Yes.
So it was the space that was formerly Inkwell.
Mm-hmm.
We took it over several months ago, and we're just sort of in the process of, kind of putting our own fingerprint on it. And
but you're keeping the tile, the cool tile floor.
Absolutely keeping the tile. Okay. Yeah, if you've never been in that space before, the building was built as the showroom for a tile company.
Oh, nice.
And so they went all out on the tile work. It's got these, great terrazzos everywhere. And, even the bathroom is way overdone with the tile work. So we've played with that a lot in how we've kind of handled the colorways. There was this really nice sort of bone color in the tile. We stole that and put it on the walls.
Nice.
The bar front is this sort of kind of oxblood color that's also from the tile work in the floor. So we're really letting the space sort of influence, how we handle colors. I was just there a minute ago. Our friend Kyle Taylor is working on a commissioned piece for the space that's about 12 feet long.
Wow.
And goes behind the bar. And a lot of those colors too are just sort of, harmonizing with the colors in the tile. So yeah, definitely keeping the tile.
Love that. Okay, so Bar Limina is going to be kind of a slightly different approach to cocktails in Memphis in that you're going to have guest bartenders come in frequently.
Yeah, so not an original idea in the idea of essentially a guest shift. But in order to really talk about that, I kind of have to talk about the dinner series, because they sort of work in tandem with one another.
Start at the beginning. Tell us about Etowah Collective. Just give us the whole story.
Sure. Yeah. A couple of years ago, Cole Jeans and I drank a bunch of wine and had some pizzas in his backyard, and sort of started hypothesizing on what does a sort of chef-focused, art-focused quarterly dinner series look like in Memphis. It's a pop-up.
Mm-hmm.
So we pop up in places all over, basically downtown. Interesting and unique locations is how I pitch it to chefs, which usually means, hey, I hope you're comfortable with not cooking in a kitchen, because we probably are not going to have one. So we've been in 1920s era parking garages and artist studios and galleries and the basement of an abandoned strip club and all sorts of places down on the riverfront in Tomley Park, which was absolutely beautiful. And my body is still recovering from that.
But Tomley Park, so you pop up these dinners several times a year, 4 times a year. You bring in a chef from somewhere around the world.
Right. And it is sort of framed that way.
Yes.
Really, we're looking for people who are inspiring to us and doing inspiring work. And yeah, the pitch is really, really simple. I approach a chef and say, hey, let's do a pop-up in Memphis. I'm going to put 150 people in front of you, and I just want you to tell them your story. And, that looks different for a lot of different chefs, right? They, some of them go way back to their childhood. Some of them sort of want to do like a kind of greatest hits of restaurants that they've worked at or owned in the past. And yeah, the intent is that guests will get up from that table after 5 courses and really understand what makes that person tick as a creative. So that's kind of the thing that we're looking to offer to guests.
Yeah,
it's been a really cool platform to work on. Mm-hmm. We've gotten a lot of really cool people into to do these events. People with Michelin stars, people who multiple James Beard nominees. And we've made a lot of really great friends kind of in the process.
Do you see diners like coming back to the series a couple times a year or every year, people making friendships? Yeah, for sure. And that's one of the kind of interesting things about it is we announce the next dinner at the table. So we always have a QR code on the back of the menu for people to scan, and they kind of get like early access to the tickets. And we usually sell about 60% of the seats at the next dinner the night of the previous dinner. So that's almost becoming more of a problem. Because we're having a hard time like reaching out and getting new customers, which is great. We, totally value everybody that sits at the table with us. But, in order for it to sort of reach a broader audience, we're having to kind of think about how that works a little bit. So who was the last chef that came and cooked for the Etowah series, and what were some of the dishes they served? Yeah, so we had Vinny Cimino in from Cleveland. He's a James Beard nominated guy. He's got a restaurant called Cordelia. Okay. He did some really cool stuff. He stretched our service flow a little bit. His thing is all about Midwest nice. That's how he frames up his restaurants. And so he wants everything to feel like you're sitting in grandma's house, or like at a big family function. And so he wanted a lot of stuff to be family style, which, is super cool. We were happy to do that. So he did, first course was he called it a Midwest relish tray. Okay. It was just like these like hyper chefy takes on like carrot hummus and sort of, dippy things. Dips. Dips. Mm-hmm. Probably the most stunning dish that he did was a beef pot pie that had 2 like beef bones sticking out of it. Mm-hmm. And so those were served, on the table, and everybody just sort of dug into them. And, it was like basically beef burgundy that was cooked way, 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 way down inside of a pastry with marrow dripping all over it. It's mouthwatering. It was pretty awesome. Delicious. Yeah, it was really good. And while I've heard you say you stay away from like specifically a wine dinner feel, but you do have wine and beverages. How does that work? Yeah, we work with our friends at Rootstock to do some wine pairings for that. Charlie Purpure at Rootstock kind of is our in-house sommelier. It's great. This last dinner, with it sort of being really homey feeling, we with the first course we also dropped 6ers of High Life ponies on the table along with the wine course. So that was really fun. Yeah. So by the time people are listening to this, you're going to be really gearing up for Bar Limina. It sounds like this is kind of taking the same spirit of you bring people in that we don't get to eat at their restaurants all the time. Yeah. It's not the same chefs, that we have here in Memphis. They do something new and special in a unique location. You've got a unique location for the bar. Yep. Is it just spirits, wine, beer? Is it going to be nighttime only? All that fun stuff. Yeah, so Bar Limina is a cocktail bar. Mm-hmm. Cocktails are the focus. We will have wine. We will have a little bit of beer. Sure. There will be a little bit of food. Mm-hmm. It's got a cold kitchen in it, so we're not going to be
There won't be anything too extensive on the food side, mostly cheese and charcuterie and that sort of thing. We are working with some friends from the neighborhood on some kind of fun things that we can bring in and kind of cross promote a little bit. But yeah, no, it's a cocktail bar. It's with the approach to how we want to do guest shifts, which we'll get to in a minute. But the approach to the menu is kind of intentionally very simple yet elegant and driven by technique. I think cocktails are in a really cool place right now where, 10 or 12 years ago, every time you sat at a cocktail bar, it felt like a history lesson because people had sort of forgotten how cocktails were supposed to be approached. And so if you were like at Cure or, some bar like that, it was almost like an arms race of, I found this out of print cocktail book and brought this recipe out of it. So like prohibition.
Exactly.
And so everybody was like having to teach the guest how to, like, why they should care about cocktails. I think this is a really interesting time because we're not really having to do that anymore.
Right. People know, or they just want to drink it. Maybe
people kind of get cocktails now to a greater degree than they did, 10 or 12 years ago. So very technique driven and focused on just like really, really great cocktails. So yeah, we kind of mentioned the tie-in to the dinner series.
Yes.
So we've been bringing all these chefs in from all over the country, and asking them to tell their story to our guests, and our guests are, have this really unique experience of being able to get the snapshot of this chef in this particular moment, right? So we could bring the same chef back 5 or 6 times, and it would always be a different experience because they're in a different creative moment. They're like testing through different ideas and that sort of thing. And I really think that that's a cool idea.
Yes.
And my sort of, brain started going to how do I create more of that magic? Like that is the thing that is really fun and I think is really special.
How can we do it all the time?
I want to do it all the time. Mm-hmm. And so John Halford, who is an architect and developer in the Edge District, approached me. He said, "Hey, we've got this space and we're not really sure what to do with it. Have you got any weirdo ideas as to how we might fill it up?" And look, if you're looking for somebody with weirdo ideas, like
you raise your hand.
I'm your guy.
You volunteer to distribute.
So I pitched this idea to him, and now here we are, probably a month out from opening it up. So the idea is that we'll bring in anywhere between 15 and 30 guest bartenders to take over the whole concept for multiple days throughout the year. So that means like presenting a menu alongside ours, and guests can expect that. This is a bartender that maybe they read about in a magazine or they saw on social media, or they were like in Los Angeles and sat at the bar and now here they are in Memphis. And so, that's kind of the idea is that, we're continuing to expand Memphis's reach, as like a food city, as a cocktail city, through these sort of individual, visits.
Love that. So you are having you will have had, by the time people are hearing this, a pop-up at Swamp Bar, mm-hmm. which is it's in the former restaurant Iris space next to Second Line and Overton Square. So that's already happened, but tell us a couple of things that are going to be on that pop-up menu that people might also then see on your house cocktail menu at Bar Limina.
Yeah. Really, really excited and appreciative of Kelly and Sam at Swamp Bar for reaching out and offering the space. So yeah, that's coming up in a couple of days. When I leave here after recording this, I've got to go get with them and start getting stuff prepped and macerated. So thinking about maceration.
Yes. What are we macerating?
One of the things that has sort of I've done it at several events recently, it's an idea I'm really into is this like fig old fashioned, where you take dried black mission figs and soak them in like a really high proof rye whiskey for a couple of days. And so it kind of takes on this sort of like, I don't know, like jammy kind of quality. It doesn't get sweet so much as it gets like this, kind of like very deep, dense fruit flavor to the whiskey. And then you just build an old fashioned off of that. And kind of the piece that takes it over the edge is a kombu tincture. So kombu, which is like a kelp. It's dried and kind of salty, a lot of kind of sea flavors. A couple of drops of that into it. And that's a fig old fashioned. That's going to be at Swamp Bar this weekend, and also probably on our permanent menu.
That sounds right up my alley.
Yeah, for sure. And then a little on the lighter side, I'm sure most people are familiar with what a last word is, which is equal parts gin, maraschino, lime juice, and chartreuse. Sort of doing a play on that, swapping the gin for pisco, and then making it as a short drink. So
like a sipping drink.
Well, no, it's like less volume. So I'm wanting it to come out to about 1.5 ounces. Add a bar spoon of kefir, which is like a yogurt, into the mixing tin before you shake it. Shake it and then put it in a glass and top it with champagne. I'm not really sure why that works so well, but it is really, really delicious. And it's also one of those that you're like, geez Louise, like that, you need to like keep a tally mark on the table of like how many of those you've had. Yeah, because
they'll go down.
Could get away from you pretty quick.
I am now hungry and thirsty for all the things that you've been talking about. What is a really great cocktail or drink that you've had in Memphis recently? And really, you could answer this like, what's a great meal you've had recently around town?
My wife and I went out on Sunday for Valentine's Day.
Yeah, brave.
We went to, we went to Cafe and Mary, which is, all these years later, such a beautiful restaurant.
I agree.
When I talk about that space, I always like tell people, we went there like the night we got engaged to celebrate. We have celebrated big birthdays there and big events, and of course Valentine's Day. But we'll also like pop in on a Tuesday, or like grab a drink before a game or something like that. And when a restaurant can pull double duty like that, like that's a really good space.
It's impressive.
So I am always pro Catherine and Mary. We had a really great meal there. Just talking about drinks specifically. They have a bijou on the menu right now, which is like a gin and chartreuse drink. Here I go again. But no, I don't know that I've ever seen a bijou on anybody's cocktail list before. So that was super exciting. To see that, and yeah, they nailed it. Jenna and her team up there have some good stuff going on. And of course the food was great too.
And you said you'd also traveled recently? Yeah,
I just got back from San Francisco. I don't know. Last spring we had a chef in for dinner series, Seth Stowaway. He's a Michelin-starred guy. He has a restaurant called Osito, which this is crazy, but it's open fire. Everything is open fire at Osito. They can't boil a pot of water unless they make a fire. And just like thinking about what it would be like to run a restaurant like that is insane.
Yeah. Don't do it.
Yeah. So he does it very, very well, and his restaurant is beautiful. But I went out there just to kind of hang out with him. And we have I had an interview with a potential candidate for Limina out there as well. But while I was there, I went to several of the like top 50 cocktail bars. True Laurel is incredible. They had this like I want to say guava, chrysanthemum kind of thing going on. It was awesome. Everything that we had there was great. It had like fried mushrooms as well that were pretty awesome. Great stuff going on out there.
It's always interesting to go travel and see how different it is in other cities. And I know that sounds so obvious, but then to be able to bring it back here and invite people in, that's going to be something special.
Yeah, for sure. So I mean, kind of a little bit about my background. I moved to Memphis to study city planning. And so that's kind of like what brought me to town. I'm from Northeast Arkansas originally. Lived in Nashville for a little while. And, I wanted to study city planning because I wanted to work in historic preservation, because I kind of had this idea that the historic fabric of cities was like special to everyday city life. And as I got into that study and really into my life, what I kind of came to realize is that it's really food places that make cities tick and that make, day-to-day life special. And so, definitely fun to get to San Francisco, which is such a great food and drinking city, and get to experience that a little bit.
Here I go with my theme for 2025 on this Soundbites Daily Memphian's Food, Drink, and Dining podcast you can listen to every week at 11 on WYXR or at dailymemphian.com. But this year, we just came off a year where there was a lot of restaurants that closed or older restaurants that closed. And so I got the feeling that there was sort of this section of people, mostly people in comment sections online, that were down about it. And you're getting ready to open your own place, and a lot of people. You and Cole Jeans from Hard Times and Kinfolk are, you guys started the Etowah Club Collective, and you know them well. You've mentioned several people from Rootstock and Gym Dining. I know they're well connected. It's almost like there's this little network, maybe big network, of Memphis entrepreneurs and food lovers that are kind of coming up and making a little bit of a new scene. That's my soapbox. What is your take on all of that? Because, it was a hard year for restaurants, and it's still going to be hard.
Sure.
But,
that's no doubt that it's been a hard year for restaurants. But a lot of years are hard for restaurants. And so when I think about the Etowah Collective and, kind of the platform that we've built there, one of the things that I wasn't expecting to come out of that when we started doing this dinner series thing, we have this sort of core group of staff who work every single event with us. They have other jobs. They're, younger than I am now. And, they kind of almost fight each other to be involved in these dinners. And there was something that happened, I don't know, a year ago or so, where all of a sudden I realized that, I guess the long and the short of it is we don't make any money off of the Etowah dinner series. It's just a thing that we do for fun because we think that it matters to this city. And ultimately what we found was it mattered to that group of people who are helping us put it on.
Yes.
And so that's
the servers and the chefs,
people
and the
who,
cooks,
people who were working in the, I'm putting big air quotes around it, but the kitchen,
right,
in the alley, and the people who are working the floor with me on that. So, there is this sort of groundswell of people who care about food and beverage. Cole and I talk a lot about how do we continue to develop food and beverage in the city of Memphis as an industry. How do we make sure that there's a market that cares about it and wants to support it and that sort of thing. And so that's a lot of what the Etowah Collective is about now is, how do we really tap into any and all opportunities to sort of grow that next wave, support that next group of professionals. How do we put money in people's pockets so that they can go and study with Seth Stowaway at Osito or with, Vinny Semino at Cordelia? How do we make sure that there's this networking opportunity to get out there and go be inspired and then come back and perform your work in the city of Memphis? So it's going to take things like that to grow that next core group of folks, but we're working on it.
You're working on it. You did tell me there's a group chat.
Yeah. There's a group chat with a couple of folks, me and Cole and Skylar O'Brien and Harrison Downing and our friend Kyle Taylor, who does a lot of the branding work for all of us. And I'm not sure which one of us renamed it, but it's called About to Figure It Out.
About to Figure It Out.
About to Figure It Out after the line in the Mac Miller song 2009, where he says the whole team's about to figure it out. And that's kind of how we feel, is that we're all sort of riding this, this crescendo, this wave, and we feel like we are starting to get a little bit of a tailwind behind us, and that our moment is now. Another thing I would add to that I hand these out all the time and send them to people and talk with people, but the Etowah Collective has a hat. We don't have a lot of merch, but we do have a hat that I have the pleasure of seeing around town every once in a while. On all of the menus for the dinner series, we emboss this okra flower on the corner of it. And where that comes from is when we were sort of developing the brand of the Etowah Collective, I needed like a secondary mark. We had a logo, we had this like E that we use on a lot of stuff, but I needed like a secondary thing that could kind of exist in some places. And I wasn't really thinking about it. I was sitting in my garden and I sent a picture of an okra flower to my buddy Kyle. And I said, man, okra plants are so cool because the more you harvest them, the more they produce. And the second you quit harvesting okra, the whole plant dies. Mm-hmm. I think that there's a lesson there, like
sure.
Capitalize or die. And so he said, there's your mark. And we've got it on hats. I give them out to people all the time. Capitalize on the moment or the whole plant's going to die.
That's very inspiring. I need one of these hats now. This is
I got
great.
You.
They're like they're not related to those, like, I like Memphis hats.
Mm-hmm.
For some reason, they're in the same zeitgeist in my mind.
Yeah.
Well, really excited about the Edge District neighborhood where Bar Limina is going to be and all that's happening there, and that you're going to be a part of it. Please keep the Daily Memphian and our listeners updated on who's coming in town.
Of course.
And just also what you guys have going on a daily basis. I know there'll be like a regular program as well. But thank you for sharing everything about the Etowah Collective and, your views on the city's dining scene with us today.
Thanks for having me.